and thank you for joining this session. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes on what we can learn from Swedish advertising. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Now, I could be really cocky and say we've got it all worked out in Sweden and in Swedish advertising, but of course that's not the case. We, like everyone else, are struggling with gender inequality, segregation, racism, and misrepresentation, both in our society and in the advertising industry in Sweden. But there is some good stuff going on, so I thought I'd share the good things, and hopefully that can inspire you and ignite some new initiatives for you as well. And as I believe we will get nowhere before we share childcare and family, that's where I will start. My name is Christina Knight. I'm a creative director at the Stockholm-based agency, The Amazing Society. I'm also the founder of Mad Women Academy, launching in November this year for online training within equity, inclusion, and diversity, and also for mentorship. I'm going to start here. Three good things is what I want to share. I'm going to actually allow myself to be inspired by the Swedish government. So in 2014, Sweden was the first country in the world to announce a feminist government, with our foreign minister Margot Wallström starting the world's first feminist foreign policy, applying a systematic gender equality perspective. The Swedish feminist foreign policy is based on 3 R's: rights, resources, and representation. So I have stolen those 3 R's to guide you through some good stuff in the world of Swedish advertising. Here we go. So the first R, rights. And because I believe that before we get equal rights when it comes to professional life, there will be no equality, not in advertising, not anywhere at all. So in 1974 already, Sweden was the first welfare democracy to introduce paid parental leave to both parents, signaling fathers should take greater responsibility in caring for their young children, that children possesses the right to have access to both their parents, and that fathers should facilitate mothers' return to and involvement in paid work and after having a child. So in Sweden, that in effect means parents are entitled to 480 days of paid leave when a child is born or adopted. And out of these 16 months, 3 months are reserved solely for each parents, referred to as a use it or lose it model. This is meant to incentivize men to take leave. Single parents receive all 480 days of leave. Now, to encourage mothers and fathers even more to split the parental leave days, an equal opportunity bonus was added. So regardless of whether you're married or not, parents who split the leave time more equally get up to a $1,500 bonus added. Further, childcare and preschool costs are calculated on income, so low-income families pay nothing for childcare, and costs for wealthier families are capped at approximately $150 a month. So in effect, parents' contributions cover roughly 10% of the total cost of childcare, with the rest being covered by the Swedish state, which interestingly spends more on subsidizing preschool services than it does on Sweden's defense budget. Now, has this made a difference? Yeah, you bet it has. In the mid-70s, men used less than 1% of parental days. Today, they use roughly 25%. Still not enough, obviously, but there's a big difference. Is it any good? You bet. For everyone, moms, dads, kids, and society. Studies show that families with dads who take more leave, for instance, they share chores and childcare more equally with mothers. And men who take longer leave also report being more satisfied with parenting and more engaged in the care of their children afterward, after having been on parental leave. They also report having stronger bonds with their partner and children. So, rights to parental leave enable a more equal private life as well as a more equal professional life. However, women are still paid less, even in Sweden. So when push comes to shove, it is often the woman who stays at home for financial reasons. Her man makes more money. So talking of equal pay, the Swedish law states every company with 10 employees or more has to conduct salary surveys every year, including analyzing gender differences in salary. The law also states that the employers have to work actively to overcome these differences. So this perhaps could inspire you to go into politics, I guess, and vote for the people who are willing to work for more equality in parental leave. The Swedish language has given the world one single word, ombudsman. The Equality Ombudsman is an independent government agency, and its tasks include the supervision of compliance with the Discrimination Act and the promotion of equal rights and opportunities, regardless of sex, transgender identity or expression, ethnicity, religion, or other belief, disability, sexual orientation, or age. So because these rights are stated by Swedish law, they are, of course, implemented in the Swedish advertising industry too. So Swedish creative directors, Swedish CEOs take parental leave, whether male or female. It's totally the norm and totally encouraged. So to sum up, rights are important. Let's move on to the second R for resources. There are 10.6 million people in the whole of Sweden. That's as many as in North Carolina. You get it. It's a really small country. And resources are scarce. Only about 200,000 Swedes work in the advertising industry. It's a tiny community. And yet, Sweden and the Swedish ad industry is really competitive on the global scene, celebrated and awarded for its creativity. Stockholm, in fact, produces the second highest number of billion-dollar tech companies per capita after Silicon Valley. Hence, the world not only gets IKEA, H&M, Volvo, and Spotify, but also award-winning agencies that take to the stage in Cannes to bring home the lions. How is this possible for a tiny country where winter is always coming and with a useless language that no one else speaks, well, apart from the word ombudsman? Well, there are several dimensions to this, enabling the creativity in our industry. Like low corporate income taxes, it's easy to license new companies, and today there are significant tax breaks for starting and owning a business. With the rise of the internet and unusually high internet penetration, which Sweden has, more and more people are creating businesses and experimenting with new technology. But to be honest, I think one really important red thread is that we are generally not driven by fear. Our social safety net helps entrepreneurs feel safe to take risks. In Sweden, university is free and students can get loans for living expenses, which allows anyone to pursue higher education, even later on in life. Healthcare is free too, and childcare, as you know, is heavily subsidized. Swedish policies tend to protect the employee over the employer, and that has effects on how we work and how we relate to our jobs. when you don't have to constantly worry about protecting your job, it's more about what you can do with the job you have. It makes Swedes feel safe, which means you dare stick your neck out with opinions on the agency culture, for example, with edgy ideas for a new campaign. Your CD and your CEO are not hierarchically distanced from you. They're more like the person by the desk next to you. Also, workplace culture in Sweden is generally not hierarchical. It is consensus-based and team-focused. So collaboration is the natural way of being and working as a Swede. The culture code says no one is supposed to be above anyone else. And this has trained us to work together to achieve results for the group rather than for the individual. This Swedish consensus approach, where decisions are taken by the group rather than imposed by the leaders, encourages people to contribute to others' ideas because the group will get the credit. Now, to be a successful collaborator, you need a good dose of empathy to understand the others in the group and hence get a better result. And empathy also happens to be the absolute key skill when it comes to mastering advertising. It is essentially the skill to understand what it is like to be the audience, the consumer. It is also the ability that makes really good leaders, as leadership is essentially about creating followership, to create trust from the group. Now, of course, there are exceptions, like bad boy aggressive cultures and creative directors from the sort of boys club. But generally, Swedish leadership is described as lagom. So you're learning a new Swedish word today, lagom. The term is used to describe things done in moderations, neither too much nor too little, and has become the way Swedish leadership culture is often described. So I give you the word lagom and some ideas on how to achieve a more nurturing agency culture. Don't let fear be your driver. A culture defined by fear will not be creative. Let someone other than a senior creative director lead brainstorming sessions at the agency to remove the sense of hierarchy and fear. Encourage a collaborative culture where an idea is judged on its merit, not on who came up with it. And encourage your team leaders to lead a rich life also outside of work. Allow for family life and interests outside of advertising. It'll enrich their lives as well as yours and the work you put out of the door every day. Let's move on to the final R for representation. I give you 3 examples of initiatives that have been enabled by collaborative resources and creative leadership in the Swedish advertising industry. And they are all there in place to improve representation. So the first initiative then is one of 3. It's an initiative that I started in 2014 together with a colleague at Ogilvy, where I was a creative director at the time. I just got so fed up with my male creatives saying that, well, there are no female directors around, so they simply had to ask only male directors for a treatment in pitches. We all knew that it was hard for the female directors to produce showreels because they were not getting the work. It became like a catch-22 situation. So the objective of one of 3 is to engage more female directors in commercial filmmaking. So in every pitch, at least 1 of 3 directors should be a woman. This idea was adopted by the Swedish Film and TV Producers Association in Sweden and the Swedish Association of Communication Agencies, COM. You can visit the website 103.com and discover that there are tons of great female directors. But you are, of course, smart enough to already know that. The second initiative I'd like to share with you is called We Are Part. It was originally called Stockholm Open, but as it has spread globally from Stockholm, it's now called Part and communicates under the hashtag We Are Part. It started as a collaboration between the city of Stockholm to do internships during 3 weeks in the summer at one of 50 agencies around Sweden, to be able to discover and pursue a career in an industry not normally easily accessible to them. Today, 10 cities around the world have followed suit to introduce more young people to advertising and create a more interesting, diverse setup. And finally, my third example is called the Reality Check, and it's from the Amazing Society in Stockholm, where I am currently creative director. We want to challenge the existing norms, structures, and stereotypes of advertising, and we want to inspire our industry to do the same by scrutinizing all the content produced at the agency. Does our casting, content, and representation really mirror society in a relevant and truthful way? Or are we just reproducing limiting and toxic stereotypes? We have quantitatively analyzed all our content based on gender, sexual orientation, race, age, disability, and body size. And we have given away the tool freely to our industry to encourage more to do the calculation exercise themselves. It's an eye-opener. So to conclude, what can we take from the Swedish advertising? Well, it is what we can take from Swedish feminist foreign policy: rights, resources, and representation. They're all vital to our industry as they are to society. Just add a local ombudsman to keep an eye on equity and belonging, and allow your leadership to be defined by lagom, and you will be well on your way. Good luck, and many thanks for listening.